Hi, this is Don McAllister and welcome to another edition of Screencasts Online. In a break with tradition, I'm releasing this first iOS tutorial a couple of days in advance of the formal release of iOS 11. iOS 11 contains many changes, but the biggest impact is for iPad users. So in this show, I'll feature the iPad front and center, and I'll also try and pick up on some of the changes to the iPhone.